Hi friends, we at GLC would like to take a quick moment to thank you for watching our programs on this platform, and we'd like to ask you for a little favor. Would you please go beneath this video and click the subscribe button? Did you know that by simply subscribing to the GLC YouTube channel, you can help us financially support the programs on this platform? You'll need to be signed into YouTube beforehand, but if not, simply click the subscribe button and YouTube will automatically walk you through the steps to sign in or to create an account. By taking these simple steps, you will not only ensure that you continue to receive our unique programming and gain instant access to the hundreds of videos we post, but more importantly, you'll also be telling YouTube that GLC's content is worth watching and promoting. Likewise, if you enjoyed a specific program, please click the thumbs up button below, which also helps inform YouTube that this is a program worth recommending. Finally, once you have logged in and subscribed, please click the notification bell below in order to receive announcements when we post new content. As usual, feel free to post your questions and comments in the comments section below. We always love hearing from our friends and viewers. Again, thank you for watching and supporting God's Learning Channel. We couldn't spread the message of the gospel without you. Be blessed, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Shalom, shalom. Welcome back to In My Flesh I See God. Once again, don't freak out over the title. This is all about seeing the reality of our Creator within us, something that was understood by many of the ancient sages for centuries before there was even microscopes or telescopes in the universe. And so they knew the scriptures very well, and that's the reason why they could understand and see these things from the very beginning. And when we left off last time, we were talking about, we were right in the middle of a quote that I want to continue a little bit here before we get into atoms and molecules, because that's primarily what we're going to talk about. This section is where atoms come from and molecules, these words that they chose, biologists chose to describe the functions and the things that they see going on inside of our body and where they came from. We were talking about a quote from a book called Adam and Evolution from a man by the name of Michael Pittman. And if we can bring that up back on the screen real quick, David, here, I want to continue to talk about this. Here's what he says. And once again, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the traditional view of evolutionists is the more time you add to it, the more possibility that something could have occurred. And so even though they don't find any evidence of these things happening within the span of time that they think things existed, for instance, when I was young, 3.5 billion years old, they just add several more billion years to it, saying, well, that gives us more chance. But actually, according to the laws of entropy, the laws, these are known things, that things are corrupting, the more time you add actually lowers the possibility of chance. Time is no help. Biomolecules outside a living system tend to degrade with time, not build up. In most cases, a few days is all they would last. Subsequently, if a large word, compared to a protein here, or even a paragraph is generated by chance, time will operate to degrade it. The same with the language. So the more time you add, the more it starts to degrade over time. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about. The more time you allow, the less chance there is that a fragmentary sense will survive the chemical maelstrom of matter. And I suggest to you words as well. Everything, according to our understanding, come on back to me now, David, according to our understanding now of how things work inside our bodies, how all the letters and the things that make up the entire universe work, we now understand that things could not have been added to and built up like you were building something over time. That now we understand that all the things that comprise an atom and so forth and our genetic material had to all be there at the same time for any of it to work. It could not have been added to over time like building making a building or something, constructing a building. It all had to be there in the beginning. And the same is true with language. Everything was true in the very beginning. And over time, because of the laws of entropy, things tend to degrade. That's why I believe and teach that Hebrew, all languages, but in particular Hebrew, has devolved over time. devolved, not evolved. That it started out in the beginning with the brilliant simplicity of these simple little childlike pictures. And over time, it's corrupted. And that we're bringing these things back to the beginning. God constantly has to bring things back to the beginning in order for us to understand it. Now, let's talk about another couple of subjects that we find within ourselves, within all things, and that is atoms. Atoms. Now, I'm going to submit to you that atom, our English word atom, comes from Adam. In Hebrew, Adam is where it comes from. And that atom, let's break down atom. Atom is a combination of two words, two Greek words, atome. Atome. So actually it's the T-O-M part separated from the A. The in the Greek language is the word that we mean without or not to or something. It's kind of the opposite. A millennium and an amillennial and millennial. No, one means a millennium and the other one means no millennium, and so forth. And that's used in Greek to express that. Now, tome means to cut or to split, to splice or cut or split. So, atome means do not cut or splice, do not cut. And so many of us talk about the concept of splitting the atom. You've heard the term splitting the atom. What happens when you split the atom? Chaos ensues. And so the very nature of atom is not to cut. Not to cut. Why? Because once you split the atom, that's the whole basis, by the way, of the atom bomb. Okay? Once you split it, chaos ensues. And so the very nature of the word is not to split it. Now, we go back to, well, let's talk about atoms a little bit more. Atoms are basically made up, as we talked before, with like particles and unlike particles within an atom. In atoms, there are opposite charges. There are positive charges and negative charges in an atom. And especially when we get down to the fundamental atoms like hydrogen, for example, which has an atomic number of 1. When we go back to the Adam in the garden, I believe clearly in the beginning that Adam was one individual, that he was created in the image of God, that Adam and Eve, or Adam and Eve, man and woman, male and female, were one. And that the Father literally put Adam down into a sleep, and he split, or he cut Adam and removed Eve from him. That Adam, the original Adam, both male and female, had all the genetic information. The original Adam 1 had all the genetic information to make a male and a female. That's the way it began. And then when the helpmate, remember, Father went out to look for a helpmate for Adam, and he went through all the animals, right? And he realized, well, you know, the giraffe, that's not going to cut it. I mean, man's not meant to be alone, okay, and so forth. So he's looking for a helpmate for him, and he realized, well, you know, the tiger's not going to work. The giraffe is going to be kind of awkward and so forth. And he realized that plants and animals weren't going to cut it. And I'm oversimplifying this, if you will. And so we finally realized that a woman, a mate for Adam, has to be actually from Adam and has to actually be the opposite of Adam. Now remember, in atoms, we have like charges and unlike charges. We have a positive charge and the negative charge in an atom. The same is true in the original Adam. Within him was a positive charge and a negative charge. Now, I'm not going to submit to you that the man is the positive charge and the woman is the negative charge, but I will tell you that the word for mate in the English word helpmate in Hebrew is, the root is nagad, N-A-G-A-D, nagad, and it's the Hebrew word for the opposite of. Opposite of. So just like a negative charge is the opposite of a positive charge, so the woman is the opposite of the man. So everything the man lacks, the woman has. Everything the woman lacks, the man has. And so they are opposite charges, if you will. And that's the way things are supposed to be designed in the beginning. And so the picture that the Father is drawing with the atom that we see in the Adam is that when he split Adam and removed her from him, when you divide and separate, then chaos ensues. Like reason we are separated. For example, according to Isaiah, you and I are separated from God by our sin. The two houses, the house of Israel and the house of Judah, were the only two in the new covenant. When they're separated, then it's not good. It's not good for them to be alone. And so chaos ensues. And so the purpose of the new covenant was to bring the house of Israel back together with the house of Judah so they may be one flock with one shepherd. Well, that is over time. That's what the Father is doing. And I submit to you that there's a microcosmic picture of that in Adam in the beginning when she is removed from him. And that the Father knows that that's not good. And so He immediately does what? He immediately brings them back together so they'll be one flesh. It's not good for a man and woman to be alone. And so He separates them, splits the atom, chaos ensues, if you will. And so He brings them back together in one. And that's exactly what He's doing, I submit to you, with the house of Israel and the house of Judah as well. So there's some of the background of the atom and the Adams as well. Now, another beautiful picture is in the concept of molecules in the Scriptures as well. Molecule is actually a combination of several components. As a matter of fact, let me find this on the screen here and I'll show it to you. Here it is. If you can bring this up, David, bring this up on your screen. This is the dictionary definition of a molecule. It is a pure substance which results when two or more atoms from a single element share electrons, as in O2 or oxygen. It also, and this is the one I want to focus on, it also more loosely refers to a compound, which is a combination of two or more atoms or two or more different elements, as in H2O or water. So the words I want to focus on here for just a few minutes, even though we haven't broken down molecule yet, is the word, when it's all together, it is a pure substance which results from these activities. A combination of two or more atoms. Okay, now come back to me, David. Now, I submitted to you earlier in our last program that these guys that see these things functioning within us, and they even see what they look like, specifically choose words. They just didn't willy-nilly throw something out to describe these things. There's certain words, mostly using Latin and Greek terms, to describe the function of what they see taking place. And so they decided that when they saw, one of the very first things that these scientists saw, these people delving inside the depths and so forth of cells, one of the first things that they saw was they were looking at a water molecule. A water molecule is a beautiful picture of exactly what they saw. Now, water is a combination, a compound of atoms. Remember, that's what a molecule is. But it's the pure substance that results in a compound of these atoms. And so a water molecule, as you well know, is two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. As a matter of fact, I think we'll put this up on the screen. Let's put this up on the screen. Now it's not doing it again. I don't know why it doesn't do that. There it is. Okay. We still have our Takan up here, don't we? Okay, let's erase that. Now, basically, I'm just doing this very crudely, but a water molecule is an oxygen. There's your oxygen molecule. We're just going to graphically represent them as these circles. And that's your oxygen, or the O, and it has two hydrogen molecules in it, or hydrogen atoms, excuse me. So that would be hydrogen. Okay, now that's what it looks like. Now, the word molecule is a combination of two, and we'll bring this back up. Come on back to me now. Is a combination of two Latin words, mole, and Kool-Aid. Not Kool-Aid, but Kool-Aid. C-U-L-E and M-O-L-E. Come from Latin terms. Mole means is a Latin word that means to complete or bring things together. To complete or bring things together. The word Kool-Aid is a Latin term that means to gather. As a matter of fact, we get our English word to cull out from. C-U-L-L means to cull out something, to gather something for the express purpose of completing it or making it whole. Now pay attention to those words. To gather together for the express purpose of making something whole. Now that's the reason why the molecule, of course, is the pure substance, which is a compound of several atoms. And you can see in the most fundamental, as we had on the board here, the fundamental atom, one of the most fundamental molecules, is the water molecule, made up of an oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atoms. Now the word mole in Latin, which means, once again, to fill up, to complete something, comes from the Hebrew word malah, M-A-L-A, malah. Malah is translated in your Bible as to fill something up. It's used in particular in Matthew chapter 5 verse 17 when Yeshua says, I came not to destroy the law or the prophets, but to fulfill, to gather, to make something complete. The word kula, or to fill up, to make something complete, to fill it up. The kule, the word kule, as a matter of fact, let's go back to our board. Let's write these up here. Go back to the board real quick, David. We still got our little water molecule there. And the word mole in Latin is from the word malah, okay, in Hebrew, which means to fill. The word kule, which is the other half of the molecule, is from the Hebrew word kahal. Excuse me, the only difference is it's a kof. It's got the K sound, but it's a kof. Kahal. Male kahal. Kahal is the Hebrew word to gather. Remember, they have to have the same sound. This word means to fill. This means to gather. They have to have the same kind of sound, mole, malah, and they have to have the same basic meaning. Mole means to complete, to fill up, to complete something, to make a foundation or a structure to something. And kahal means kule, okay, which is to cull, means to gather something together. When you cull something out, you separate something from something else and you gather it together. And so in the Hebrew, the word kahal is translated from the Greek word ekklesia, which is translated in your English as church. So a gathering or assembly of people is a kahal in Hebrew, which means to gather things together. Now, in a water molecule, one water molecule is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, and that's called a water molecule. To gather together, to complete. I submit to you, come on back to me now. I submit to you that this is a beautiful picture of the new covenant that the Father prophesies in Jeremiah chapter 31 verse 31 that in the end of days, okay, that He's going to make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. There's your 2 hydrogen atoms. And He's going to bring them into one. And Yeshua is the air that I breathe, if you will. You got the oxygen molecule. And as you saw on your screen, even though you have the oxygen molecule and the 2 oxygen atom and the 2 hydrogen atoms, you have one molecule. The purpose of the bringing together of the house of Israel and the house of Judah is that there be one shepherd, one flock with one shepherd. And how's that going to be accomplished? By Him gathering together His people from the 4 corners of the earth where He has scattered them, and in the latter days He will gather them all back together into one. And this is even seen in the word molecule, or to fill up, to gather together. And this is what the Father is doing in the latter days by restoring these 2 houses. Why? Because the Father's in the business from the beginning of bringing the bride and the bridegroom together. Adam and Kava, back together. Why? Because as long as they're apart, there's chaos in the world. Things are not the way the Father designed them to be. So in the latter days, He's going to bring those 2 back together. Why? So there'll be one flock, not two, one flock with one shepherd. And this is clearly seen in the actions of a water molecule as well. Now remember earlier on when we first started this In My Flesh I See God, we were talking about the DNA molecule. And the DNA is basically from the Hebrew root rakam, the Hebrew word rakam, which means to take two threads and twist them together to form one blue thread as they're twisted together. And we saw that the DNA molecule is two threads, if you will, twisted to form the DNA molecule. Now, it just so happens that I talked earlier about the fact that in the book of Numbers, chapter 15, the children of Israel are commanded to don what's called tzitzit. Remember we talked about this earlier. These things that everybody wonders, why is this hanging from my pants? And isn't that supposed to be a Jewish thing? I submit to you the beauty of this, and I hope we have time to do it in this session. The beauty of this is that what's commanded is a blue thread called tekelet, called tzitzit, which is twisted together, two threads twisted together. Everything else is tradition. The commandment is the tzitzit. Everything else, the colors, the other strands, the knots, where you even place them is all tradition. And I believe that God's a big enough God that we can all express our love for Him in our various ways as long as we're keeping the commandment. So the logical reason is, why do we keep this commandment? Well, first of all, the Scriptures tell us that it's a 24/7 reminder, if you will, of the commandments of God. It reminds us of His commandments. And He tells us to give it to the children of Israel. Now, some people think because in the Hebrew that's B'nai Israel, that it's only men that are to wear the tzitzit. But the nature of the Hebrew language is that when you have... See, Hebrew has no neuter gender. Hebrew has no neuter gender. Things are either in the masculine or the feminine. And because you have no neuter gender, if you have a group of mixed people, the Hebrew will default to the masculine. That's because every Hebrew word starts out in the masculine. And so it would default to the masculine. And so if I was talking to a group of males only, I would use the words zekorim or something like that, all males. If I was speaking to only females, I would say nekabim, or females. But if I'm speaking to a group of people where there's male and females, then I've either got to call the whole group males or I got to call the whole group females. And so Hebrew will default, when it's speaking, generally speaking, to a mixed group, it will default to the masculine. And so when he says this is a commandment for the children of Israel, the exact same word is used when the children of Israel come up out of the land of Egypt. And so we know that not only males came out of the land of Egypt, but females came out with them. And so it's the exact same phrase used, B'nai Israel, or the children of Israel coming up out of the land. And so it's just as much a responsibility for females as it is males. But it's the meaning and purpose of this. Because tzitzit comes from the root zutz in Hebrew, which means, guess what? The blossoming of a flower. The blossoming of a flower. Now, some people think this to be some sort of legalistic, goofy thing that we talk about, which is, first of all, very insulting, I believe, not only to me, but I believe insulting to our God as well. Because the reality is that in our culture, here we have something commanded by God for us to be a reminder of our dedication and devotion to Him and His ways every day of our life. And yet we have traditions in America. For example, this ring on my finger. See this ring on my finger right here? Do you know that there's some cultures in the world in which they think that's very strange that we run around with pieces of metal wrapped around our finger? They think that they don't do those things. And so they think it's very odd that we do something like that. And when we're approached, what do we say? Well, I wear this ring to show the world that I am dedicated to my wife, that I'm committed to her. And then when you would ask the woman, she would say, I wear this piece of metal around my finger to show everybody, or else why would you wear it, of my dedication to my husband. And so we have absolutely no problem with that. But yet the idea that God gave us something, in other words, Man made the tradition up about the ring, and we're okay with that. But the Father told me to do, His children to do this, to be a reminder to us and all around us of our dedication to Him 24/7, and that's somehow odd. I think that's an abominable statement as well. Because this is also a representation of what the DNA is as well, because it is a twisted strand on us as well. And so it would be no coincidence that this is a word that means to produce fruit in the Hebrew as well. And I believe, once again, it's also a perfect picture of where everything comes from in our physical life, which is the DNA, which is our pure substance, because that was where the Father started with making all of His creation, is the beginning with that. Okay, now I hope that we've been able to trace some of these words back, the DNA, Rakam, and so forth, and be able to see the molecules and the atoms, trace them back to its relationship with this beautiful language called Hebrew. Once again, I propose to you that everything that is made of mass and matter, things that we can see, come forth from those things that we cannot see in the beginning. And of course, it's told to us over and over in the Scriptures that it's the Word of God that created all things in the universe. I believe that with all my heart, and I'm hoping that you can believe that and see that as well. That you can see that we can stand and trust in our God, that He's the God that created all things. And so we can stand firm in His Word, knowing that all things come forth from this beautiful language in the very beginning. And that our Father has sovereignly chosen, in just such a time as this, to turn back to the peoples the pure language. Remember, the meaning of that word pure comes from that word Hebrew. The English word pure comes forth from the word Hebrew. And it's no coincidence, and I've mentioned this before, that there's only one verse in your Bible that contains all 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and that's the verse right before Zephaniah 3 verse 9. Zephaniah 3 verse 8 contains every letter of the Hebrew alphabet and even their 5 final forms. And then Zephaniah 3 verse 9 starts out by saying, "And then I will turn to the peoples the pure language." The Father is doing that right in front of our very eyes right now as He brings up wonderful treasures up out of the earth that have always been there. It's just time to bring them forth. So we'll see you next time. In the meantime, cling to your roots that your days may be long. You will prosper in everything you set your hand to do. Shalom.